Our keynote speaker today is Nancy Dahl. Now, Nancy Dahl's professional career spans 5 industries with sales ranging from 20 million to 750 million. You're going to notice a little difference is that we're not having a formerly incarcerated speaker this year. Just because I know you're waiting for, okay, what was the story and when does this blow up? So we're saying, who started making those choices as a young person, beginning elementary, junior high, high school, all the way through to this moment, and all the wisdom that can be shared. And that's that's part of the blessing today as I've come to know Nancy. The largest included sales ranging from 20 million to 750 million. The largest included 20,000 employees, 7 manufacturing plants, and over 200 field offices, in excess of 700 retail operations in North America. Check this out. From 2007 to 2014, Nancy was the first ever. Why do I tear up on this? We're having these authentic moments here as we've been connecting. First ever woman president for a division of Life Touch. So broke the glass ceiling there. In addition, she serves on both corporate and nonprofit boards of directors. I've got her book and I've read her blogs. It's going to go to your heart, Dave. Nancy has been asked to share expertise in leadership, leading change, innovation, professional development across the nation for a wide range of businesses and educational audiences. Her blogs you can find on her name, www.nancymdahl.com. And you check them out right here and you'll see this page. So you want to lead, do you believe in the future? And that future includes you. And some of the blog topics, it's like having a personal mentorship conversation with someone talking to you. There's 44 on authenticity, 26 on self-development, 23 on career change management. Development is 43, innovation 25, leadership 45, learning 37, and even 11 on photography. And it'd be like sitting down with a coach and getting that wisdom to be able to tap into this for yourself. So I just want to invite you to take advantage of that. It reaches a global audience and dedicated to leading their life with intention. It's like having a personal coach. Her book, Grounded, Leading Your Life with Intention, was just released in November of 2017 to sell out crowds at her book launch events. And today she has a special for. She has pre-autographed books. 1 copy is $30. If you get 3, they're $25 each. And if you get 5, they're going to be $20 each. And get them as gifts if you like. And I've just really enjoyed this. And as I've read here in some of her remarks from the author, your outside story plays a role in demonstrating your expertise, but it's not the whole story. The inside story matters most because that's what makes it possible for you to make a genuine person-to-person connection, and that's where the real impact is possible. This book and its wisdom and insights is going to bless you. She now is dedicated in speaking, writing, and serving at the C-suite board of Board Business Advisor. She has been recognized as one of the 25 women to watch, honored as a Distinguished Alumni for her career accomplishments, and as a community leader for her dedication to mentoring others. This past January, she was recognized as a woman who leads and was featured on the cover of Minnesota Business Magazine. She earned her undergrad degree at Gustavus Adolphus College, her MBA graduate degree at the University of St. Thomas, and as a graduate of the University of Minnesota Executive Program. In addition, she has earned numerous professional certifications, including the Advanced Board Fellowship Certificate from the National Association of Corporate Directors. Nancy's been married for over 30 years to Brian. Together, they've enjoyed life's adventures with their boys, Eric and Jorgen, both graduates of South Dakota State University. And by the way, in the book, there's a story about the impact that their lacrosse coach had on them and the uniqueness, and it's so insightful and profound. It'll impact how you interact with everyone going forward. Her message today is sharing my decisions matter, so please help me in welcoming Nancy Dahl.
Thank you. And good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be here. And I thought, what shall I wear? So I thought, well, I'll wear a green jacket since I'm going to a golf club, right? So it doesn't look much like a Masters, but maybe it looks like green grass, so that snow will go away, Paco. We'll hope for that, right? So I'm excited to be here to be part of this event. I had an opportunity to meet with your planning committee and talk about, what the objectives are. And I want to say thank you to the Rotary Group for dedicating a meeting like this to look at this subject of how we make decisions, why they're important, and who they impact. Because I think in the busy world that we have, we don't often take the time to reflect on how those little things that we do make a really big difference. And so I want to remind us too, as in this journey of life that we have, it seems there's always somebody offering an easier, faster path to that payday, right? Someone always saying, I've got the better way to do it. But I would say that today is about pausing so that we can do the right thing versus do the fast thing in terms of how we lead. Because even though the world is going faster, that isn't the point. The point is, do we understand what's the right thing to do and make sure that we're living our life this way? They're looking for not only how we show up, but how we make choices. And if I had to boil down today's conversation to one focus, it would be this one. What's for sale? When we make choices, what are we putting up for sale? What trade-offs are we making in our life to move ourselves forward? That's really what they're looking at. I think it's an important framework for us to have as we have the conversation today about this conversation about our decisions and what matters. I also think it's important that we take a step back and think about the environment that we all get to behave in, that we all get to make these decisions in, because when we understand the environment, it sets us up to win. So let's talk about this world that we all live in. It's a complex place, wouldn't you agree? There's more connection than there's ever been. And we're at a faster pace than we've ever been, and yet I think we will look back and say how slow it is now. But the pace that we're in today has already exceeded the human capacity to keep up, which means that coming at us are sound bites of information as we try to understand the things that we need to make decisions on. That puts pressure on us to make the decision now. It raises and heightens our emotions. And emotions and decisions are difficult things to put together, to know that we're making a good decision, particularly when we're trying to decipher things between fact and fiction. So as we bring those things together from a perception side, we have to really sit back and say, can I take some extra time? Can I understand what those things are? Because it is the world we live in. And so our ability to be intentional, to slow it down enough so that we can be able to put things together is critically important. The second thing I think that we need to acknowledge is that we were all designed to be different. We share a human experience, but no two of us are alike. I love this quote from Dr. Seuss of why fit in when you were really designed to stand out. And I think it's quite funny how we spend all of our time trying to fit into our organizations and our schools and our friends, instead of focused on our energy about understanding how we're different and how we really operate. Because you see, we don't come with an operating manual. We don't operate all the same, and so we need to figure it out, because one size just doesn't fit all. And what works for me may not work for you, which means that there's no guarantees. So we live in a complex world and we're designed differently, and yet we have to make these decisions and do them right. So it's really up to us to figure out a way to debrief and to figure it out and to think about our life and understand what it is. Now, there's good news in this journey, and that is that we all have exactly what we need. Some people in this room would say, well, you've got the life because you've got all the resources. And I would tell you that this journey that we're on is not about the resources we have access to. It is about two other things. It is about our resourcefulness, and it is about our curiosity to understand. We can do anything if we leverage the power and the curiosity that we have and move forward from that perspective. The bad news in this journey is that we all have to do our own individual work. You can't cheat and learn from somebody else, because life is the ultimate experience model, and the only way to know if it works is to try it on, which means you're not going to do everything right. but it is about trying it on. It is about practicing. It is about feeling how that felt, which is what lets you discover who you really are on the inside. So it is about finding this special space in this world that, quite frankly, isn't set up to optimize you. There's nothing there that's set up to optimize you. So it takes your intention to really ask these two questions of who are you and what matters. It is through your discovery of those questions that you discover your core values, which for me is bedrock about why you make decisions one way or the other. The video allows us to focus on who we impact. By understanding and discovering the values, we can understand how we would prioritize things, how we would make decisions, and frankly, what's for sale. It brings us to the conversation that John had in the introduction, and that's the power of understanding our story. I think it's the single most important thing you can ever do in your life, because it is bedrock, is understanding who you are and what you stand for. I think about our stories in two ways. It is this inside and outside story that I think is important to understand. It is about being intentional so you can create your inside and outside story. And let me be more specific. The outside story are the things that you can Google. If you put, gosh, who is this speaker and should I listen to anything she has to say, you would Google me. And you would find some of the statistics that you see that you heard John talk about. The double major in business and communications from Gustavus and the double minor of psych and speech. The graduate degree from St. Thomas. The 18 jobs in 5 industries. You could see the boards I serve on, the awards I've gotten, and what the media says. But do you feel in looking at that data that you really know who Nancy Dahl is? You don't, do you? And yet we go to meetings and we put our names and then put CEO. Wouldn't it be far more interesting if I put something that I'm passionate there where we could have a different conversation? So the inside story is represented in the pictures on the bottom of this visual. But let's go a bit deeper than that. Would you have suspected that I grew up in a small town? I didn't grow up in the Twin Cities, 832 people to be exact, 90 miles southwest of the Twin Cities, 42 people in my graduating class. It was the kind of town that had the same number of churches as bars. We had one stop sign, and the only people that stopped there were the ones that didn't live there. So the cops always knew who the out-of-towners were. It's also the kind of place that if you got stopped by the highway patrol, it's highly likely he had coffee and donuts with your dad. So that's the kind of place that I grew up. I don't know that I appreciated it, frankly, when I was growing up, because I felt like everybody was in everybody's business. But it taught me a lot about accountability. You had to participate in multiple sports. You had to participate in church or school, or they frankly didn't work. Showing up and not engaging was not an option. It was also the kind of town, however, where you would get typecast based on your last name about what they thought you should do. If you made decisions and they were right ones or wrong ones, you heard about it immediately, which is a good news story from a feedback, but annoying when you don't want people paying attention to what you're doing. But that wasn't really an option. I would tell you that in my little town, people knew my car. I could drive to 4 towns around mine and they would know who I was. And I didn't like that so much because I felt like I was living in a fishbowl. So when I went to Big Gustavus, which isn't so big to some of you in city schools, but to me it was, I was elated to be one of 5 Nancy Johnsons. I was the only Nancy M, and it's the only way I got my mail. But it was my point of difference. So why do I tell you this story of the small town? Because it is part of my inside story. It taught me a lot about what it meant to build relationships, what it meant to work together as a community, what it meant to make a mistake and be able to self-correct it, what it meant to build lifelong relationships that can help you as you move forward when you have questions. I'm the oldest of 3 with a brother and a sister. This is one you might not have guessed about me. I'm an avid hunter. I hunted with my dad, and this is my youngest son. He and I went for a weekend to go duck hunting and pheasant hunting. It was really fun, and those are our 2 dogs. So you likely wouldn't have thought that about me, would you? What about this one? I'm a serious motorcyclist. This is a ride that I coordinated after a company meeting one summer day. and this is my bike. So do you see how the inside story starts to make a connection for us to have a conversation much more authentic, right? If instead of it said Nancy Dahl CEO, it said Nancy Dahl loves motorcycles, would we not have a very different conversation? Because it's part of the inside story. It's part of what makes you believable. It's part of what makes you approachable. I kept the difference between my personal life and my professional life separate until the age of 40 because I thought that would be better that way. I didn't want people in my business like I had grown up. What I didn't understand is by revealing who I was with the motorcycles and all the rest, I all of a sudden became more approachable. I, to this day, 17 years after I gave that speech, could walk in any one of the plants at Life Touch and somebody would come ask me if I have been riding my bike because we made the connection. So the power of understanding your inside story, don't discount that. And the one thing I would tell you about your inside story is that you also can't hide part of it because you aren't proud of it. Own it. It's part of who you are. It's part of what makes you tick. It's part of where you learned how things work. So make sure as you're uncovering your inside story that you understand the power that's there. It's also scary, right? To reveal some of who you are, because if someone doesn't like it, you have nothing else to offer. But maybe those weren't your kind of people anyway. The other part of the story I would tell you is I'm married. My husband's sitting in the back. We have 2 boys, which John talked about, and we love the outdoors, no surprise to you. So dirt is our friend, and we have a really good sense of humor, so that's my youngest son jumping over all of us. So we love the outside. I grew up loving the outside, and our family loves the outside. So when you think about your story and who you are, it's really a portfolio. It isn't, as I once thought, my business separate from my personal. You're far more powerful when you work from your whole self, an integrated life that works together. We can have lots of things, we just can't have them all at one time. I don't believe in balance. I think it's a bunch of crap, to be frank. I think it's more about an integrated life. So today I'm going to be all in work, tomorrow I'm going to be all in family, and it's how when I step back do I look at where I've spent my time and my priorities and who I've spent time with. And when we do the discovery and we put those things together, it allows us to start to understand some pretty significant things. What is our purpose? What am I best at? Remember, we're designed to be different. What is my difference that makes a difference when it shows up? What are my values, and which of them are for sale? And what do I believe and why? In the beginning, we accept beliefs that our parents maybe had of us and accept them as our own, but in time, we have to own them for ourselves. So it's okay to borrow someone's belief as long as you validate it for your own experience. And it's when we start to understand all of those pieces, we can learn to embrace ourselves, and it makes us stronger. It frankly gives us the courage to stand up and let our difference be seen by someone else, rather than to try to hide it or continually be fitting in. You see, because I believe our lives need to be led with intention. It's my life, my choices. Lots of people will have opinions about what they think you should do. My dad thought I should be a lawyer. I didn't want to be a lawyer. He was mad. I won't say I didn't care, but I didn't care. It was my life, right? So how do we have the courage to know that we're going to make choices that are aligned with what's important to us, and we know we're going to hit others who want us to do something different? That's really what this journey is about. And by understanding who you are fully, it allows you to stand on the bedrock to have the courage. Because you see, all of us will have a plan that looks like this, right? I'm here and I'm going to go there. But life isn't a straight line. Because everyone that sits in this room, this is really what your line looks like, isn't it? But we don't talk about it. And that's where the choices get made. So this notion that we should have a plan in our life is an interesting challenge that sometimes I get annoyed with, especially when, what are you going to be? I don't know. Right? What are you going to major in? I don't know. So as we begin to think about what it is we want to do and we put that plan together, we can have an overall vision, because both of these ended up in the same place, right? So the long-term vision you have for yourself, you can control a lot of that, but the individual decisions that you make are the things that maybe don't show up quite that way. So plan for failure. How committed are you to that big goal that you've got? And what are the 18 ways I can get there? So when one doesn't work, the other works. When that one doesn't work, there's another one that's there. And if you're proactive in thinking about what those plans are, it starts to let you make some choices without all the emotion, because you've anticipated that. You know what's going to happen. Because you see, our future and our ability to leverage that potential is predicated on not only our knowledge of ourselves, that's what gives us the potential, but the ability to get there is based on practice, which is grounded on learning. How many of you are in sports? Lots of you are in sports. You do 2-a-days, right? Your favorite time of practice, right? Not so much. But they pay off, right? 2-a-days where you have 2 practices in one day, for those of you that aren't there, right? They're tough days. So it's just like that in life. We've got to continue to practice. No one does everything right the very first time. So our ability to be successful is predicated on 3 things: the knowledge of who we are, the confidence that our lives matter and it's our decision to make, and the commitment to do the discipline to practice what we believe. And some of those beliefs become clearer as we continue down our path. And we need to understand and know that along that journey, we're going to hit lots of adversity. That's going to show our realness. It's going to show where we're stronger than we thought we were. It's going to show where we've got some work to do. And it's going to test every boundary that you said you were ever going to do. Adversity gets a bad rap. I would tell you that adversity is your friend. It gives you the richest learning experiences you will have in your entire life if you take the time to think about what happened in that time. It's also the time where you're under the microscope, where people look at what you're doing and might be calling you a failure because you didn't reach the plan. You didn't do it the way you said you were going to do. But if you're leading your life with intention, you're going to look at that and take the time to do the learning. I'm going to share 4 questions for you that were life-changing for me when you practice them over and over and over again in your life, because it gives you a perspective of the things that you're learning, reframes the position for you so that it makes you stronger the next time. And it starts with, let's take a time of year. So let's say at the end of the year, we're going to look at what we did that year. The first question is, what makes you proud? In 2018, at the end of the year, what is going to make you proud? Make a list. The second one is, what did you learn? What did you learn about yourself? What did you learn about your friends? What did you learn about who are the people that make you better when they show up and who are the ones that test you when they show up? What did you learn? This third one is the one that everybody wants to change. It's, how could I optimize something? What do they want to do? They want to change it to what went wrong. The world loves to wallow in all the things that went wrong. But by doing that, all you're doing is wallowing in it and seeing how bad it was. If you reframe the question and say, how could I optimize it? You're practice doing it better so that next time when it shows up, and it will, you have already practiced doing it again. And the last one is, what am I going to take with me? You know, our school is helpful to us because our teachers give a list of supplies that we need to bring to school. We bring them to school, we use them for the year, and we clean out our locker. But in life, that's not the case. And so this simple question of asking, what do I need for the next leg of the journey, is in essence unpacking your locker of life so that you only take the things that you need with you in the next leg of the journey. Because life is a bit about how do we unravel this conundrum that we're in to really look at what's real. Because it's hard, right? And I would just remind us that we're all unique, but we're not alone. Everyone in this room The organization, the Rotary organization, is here to support us, to ask questions, to have conversations, so that we can really start to understand what's really going on. But I would remind you, and I love this next visual because I think it illustrates it so well, when you're going around and asking people the question, you have to understand which dog they are. These two dogs played in the mud. The one on the right had a heyday. The one on the left about drowned. So when you're talking to someone, make sure you're asking the question, which one of the dogs are they, and which one of the dogs are you? Because it affects the kind of feedback you get and how you process it and what's valuable to you, and lets you have the sense of context about where you are, and most importantly, what's important to you. And that is then where you can make the promise to yourself, and this is the promise I've made to myself in decisions. First of all, what are the alternatives in this decision I need to make? What are all the things I could decide to do? And what are the expected outcomes? And lastly, what are the boundaries? What are the things that I need to guard against that are for sale or not for sale? And let me give you a couple examples, starting with one from high school. I remember riding around with my friends in my little town, and my friends wanted to go to a party. And I needed to stop by and tell my parents where I was going. So as I was walking up the driveway, I remember thinking, I don't want to go to this party. So as I walked in the door and my mother was sitting on the couch, I looked at her and I said, Mom, I'm going to ask you a question and I want you to tell me no. So I asked her the question and said, Mom, can I go to this party? And she said no. So I was able to walk down the driveway to my friends and said, my mom said I can't go. Because there was something about that party that I didn't like the outcome. And so I made sure that I didn't put myself in that place. When I took my first job at Minnesota Mutual Life Insurance, in the management development program, there was a boundary there that we had to live by too. So at Christmas, we were working with some vendors and they showed up with little coffee cups with little, Christmas kisses in it, and we couldn't accept that. And I thought that was really weird. Why can't I take this coffee cup? It's just candy. Well, they had a policy that you couldn't accept presents from vendors because they didn't want any of the employees to be bought. They wanted to know that the employees were impartial in the decisions, and although this was an insignificant gift, by living with that boundary with the company, they could know that that was there. If I fast forward to my professional life, leading large organizations as a leader, people are watching where you're at. They watch far more what you do than what you say. Do they line up? Does it make sense? And so one of the decisions I had to make as a leader is, where should I be? Where are the places I need to be to put myself in the best place to lead? And one of them that I decided I shouldn't be, at the end of every meeting, we would have the big annual meeting, you'd have a big party, and the band would play and the bar would open and all the rest. Well, I decided that nothing good could happen after 9:30. So I left. I was never there after 9:30. Now, my husband and I both love to dance, and he always looked at me and said, really? We have to go? Yes, we do have to go. Because I didn't want to be in a position to see things that I didn't necessarily want to see. And so it was better for me to leave than to stay. So I give you those examples of boundaries that I've had in my life or I've had to live by because of the companies that I work for. And I want to tell you they're a friend to you because they start to differentiate what you will do and what you won't do. The other one for me is about integrity and about telling the truth or doing things on behalf of my family. Those are never for sale. But when you put a boundary down and you say you're going to defend it, that means you defend it against everything. And it sometimes will have a consequence. Maybe there's a boss you can't work for anymore, which means you need to move on. Maybe there's a company that has a practice that you don't buy that you have to leave. And so understanding what those boundaries are and why they're important to you and then having the courage to live them with intention is critically important. And they're the simple ones that I shared. They're simple to say, but as you start to think about what's important to you and where you want to be, and you think about this question of outcome, I'm going to make that decision and what's the possible outcome, does the outcome represent really who you are? And I'm going to give you this caution. There's a 4-letter word that's going to start showing up once you know what your boundaries are. And someone's going to come to you and say, hey, I just need this help. Can you just help me with this one thing? This 4-letter word of just. right? You're in a hurry, you're doing something, just help me with this. You need to step back and say, what is it that I'm helping with? And ask the same questions. Because sometimes it will stretch a boundary. It will ask you to border on not telling the truth. It will ask you to do something else you don't. And to you, you'll think, well, I just did it one time. If you run over a boundary because it's just one time, you've done it once, you likely will do it again. And the more important lesson is you've also showed others that that boundary doesn't matter. So it's a really slippery slope. So when the word just starts showing up, throw a yellow flag and really look at what you're being asked to do. Because you see, it's important that we own our own piece, that we understand that what we say and what we do need to line up. Because the minute they don't, we start to lose the credibility for ourselves and those that are following us. It's also important that we commit to drive our own bus in the life. It's easy when you get exhausted or you think someone's smarter than you or they've figured it out to say, you just drive for a while, because it's easier that way. But understand that you're not then living your life. You're living that person's version of your life, which means you'll never reach the potential that you could. Understand that you will have roadblocks. There's things that you're going to run into that aren't going to work, but it's not like going to your GPS and saying, give me the alternative path that's 6 minutes shorter or longer, because there is no path like that in life. It is about taking the time to look in the rearview mirror to understand what the learning is, but understand that the rearview mirror is smaller for a reason, because we're going forward. So use the lessons of the past to guide you, but they are not a precursor of the way your life goes. You can make bad decisions. We've all done it. It's bad decision, good people, good life, but only if we learn from that and apply it forward. And I think this next one often gets missed, is if we decide today that we're going to go on a diet, tomorrow we won't have reached the goal, but did we make forward movement? Let's celebrate that, because it gives us the courage and the momentum to continue to move. This journey of life isn't a destination. It is really a journey, which means that we need to figure out ways to keep our batteries fueled. And we need to commit to understand what excellence looks like for us. What does excellence look like for you as you think about it? What is it that you want to be known for? As you listen to the video in the beginning, were there people that you thought of? Were there things that you wanted to have them raising your hand for? What does this look like? Knowing that along that way you're going to hit roadblocks that cause you to not be able to, you're going to have to rethink some things. But some of them you can remove just by reframing the issue. And let me give you an example. This is my youngest son, Jorgen. He's 5 years old. And I had been traveling wildly, feeling a bit guilty, quite frankly, that I was gone. And so we did some things early Saturday morning, but it was one of those weekends where you had a ton of stuff going on. And I just, you had this long list and thinking, hey, I've just spent time with you, that's great. So I'm going up the steps, right? Thinking that I can go on to my list of groceries and getting ready for the dinner party that night and so on. And he is right there, step for step, right with me. Talking. And I'm listening, and he has yet another idea. It's 10 o'clock in the morning about what it is that he thinks we need to do. And it is a good idea. So I didn't want to squelch his enthusiasm for what it was. And I said to him, I said, Jorgen, that's a really good idea, but let's do it after lunch. To which he replied to me, okay, let's eat. And so as you journey through life, know that your work is going to be your imprint. How you show up, how you make people feel, what they see and hear you do is really who you are. That's really what happens. So I hope in our conversation today that I've encouraged you and inspired you to lead your life. Decisions are going to be made in your life, for sure. They need to be yours. It needs to be my life, my decisions, and a life designed by you, for you. But it isn't easy, and you need to do the work. Just remember that you're not alone if you reach out. So I look forward to hearing more about your inside-outside story and the power that you uncover when you bring those together, because it will be an amazing journey for sure. So thanks for your time very much.
Wonderful, Nancy. Thank you. I believe we have some time now for Q&A for about maybe 10 minutes even. So who would have a question for Nancy?
I got one for you.
In the back.
Since I'm here amongst all my Rotary friends, what do you do about little voices inside your head that are saying things negative to you and that are saying things positive to you? And back and forth you try to decide which voice should I listen to?
Yep. I talk a little bit about this in the book, but the thing with that voice in your head, the subconscious never sleeps. So it also has no ability to reason. So if you say, I'm fat, I'm dumb, I'm bad at math, your subconscious believes that and just keeps replaying that record over and over and over and over again. So one of the things that you can do to combat that little voice is to play a different record, to play words of encouragement, to recognize and have gratitude for the things that are there, so that you can reprogram it to make it happen the other way. The other thing you can do is acknowledge it's there. Say, I hear you, so this is what you're saying, but I don't like that answer, so how am I going to change the dialogue? And very specifically move your conversation the other way. One of the things I talk about in the book, I was in a very negative work environment where everything was negative and everything was bad. And so at some point it catches up with you. And I'm not a pessimistic person. I'm very much an optimist, but even me, it was starting to get to me. And so I have a bridge that I had to go across the freeway to go to work. So I said 10 times every morning, I will do awesome work today. I'm excited to go to work today. Will do awesome work today. I'm excited to do work today. So that played in my head. And I know it sounds silly, but it works. You have to think about the records that you're playing in order to be able to make it happen. Sometimes those voices happen because there's somebody chirping in your ear, and they're chirping in your ear because they're trying to get you diverted. And so think about who you're hanging out with, think about what your issues are, try to get it out on paper so you can really understand it, but then start the reprogramming. If I ended up in a really dark place where you're trying to figure out a solution, before I would go to bed, I would frame the problem for myself. I would say, here's the issue, this is what I know about it, how do I want to think about it? And amazingly, over the course of the night, in the next morning in the shower, I'd have an idea. I don't know whether that was the reason, but whenever I took time to frame what the issue, it got less scary. And it allowed me to start to reprogram the piece. But you can reprogram, that's why I believe so much in intention, is if you don't like what's happening inside your head, learn to reprogram it. Sometimes it gets programmed that way because of the people you're hanging out with. Sometimes it happens because of the way you're framing it, so go get another person's perspective on the issue. But in the end, have an action plan to be able to course correct. Does that help? Maybe more than you want to know, but other questions? Yep.
Nancy, could you talk a little bit more about adversity being your friend?
Yeah, so Irene asked the question, could I talk about adversity being your friend? I mentioned earlier that if you look at learning, when you do the best learning, there's 4 ingredients, and of course I'm only going to remember 3, but is there conflict? Is there adversity? Am I have diversity of settings? And I would explain it to you this way. So I spend a lot of time, I'm really passionate about people discovering who they need to be and learning to live their best self. People would come to me and say, I love what you're doing. I want to be like you. And I'd say, what does that mean? Right? Well, they often were looking at the leadership, or they would look at the innovation and change that I was responsible for, but they hadn't done they were trying to sort of skip a step by not knowing themselves. They were trying to be the leader. And so you get talking to them about their experience. And so let's say I'm a bank teller, and I'm talking to myself and say, well, I would say, what's your experience? And they say, well, I'm a bank teller. And they say, oh, and I've done it for 10 years. If you've done the same thing for 10 years, you really have 1 year of experience repeated 10 times. Let me say that again. So if I'm a bank teller and I'm a bank teller for 10 years, I have 1 year of experience that I've repeated 9 more times. So the best way to learn is to look for this diversity. Look for the conflict, because it causes you, it pushes you to the wall, and it tests you to look at things. And when there's a struggle, you're able to see possibilities that you didn't otherwise see, because they weren't there in the way that you saw them when you get pushed to make choices. And so I would tell you that anybody who's sitting in this room that has a lot of adversity in their life, you're ahead of everybody else. Because you've got more experience about what it means when you go under fire. You've been challenged to make good decisions and sort of live out on the other side of it. So you may look at it and say, I'm at a disadvantage. The people that I coached that had difficult family situations, that got pushed to the wall for different stuff, that didn't have, they weren't the star player, they had to work their way up, they were the ones that were ahead of everybody else because they learned early on what it meant to make decisions. They felt more the cause and effect of what they were making happen. So adversity, as I said earlier, gets a bad rap. I think it should be embraced. If you get an assignment, you look at it and go, oh my God, that's too much conflict, I would embrace it. Get into it, understand it, accept it as a learning opportunity for you, and then understand how you showed up, because that gives you new insight. So other questions, great one, over there. Oops, I can't hear you.
What kind of obstacles do you constantly have to go through?
What kind of obstacles do I have to go through? I would tell you the biggest obstacle I have is me. Right? I'm not, I'll lose my courage. Well, I maybe shouldn't do that. I'll give you an example. So I wrote this book and launched it in November. And Seth Godin, so I don't know how many of you follow his blog, but I love his blog. I think he's great. And then Mel Robbins is a great speaker. And so I thought, oh, I'm just this person lives in Minnesota. They don't really know who I am. Well, I sent them a book. And I thought, I'll never hear back from them, that nothing will happen. Both of them got back to me. Both of them said, thank you for sending the book. Both of them read the book. Both of them gave me feedback. So it's my ability to keep my confidence high, to decide that I'm worth it, that I really should do something, because I can talk my way out of it pretty quickly. So I think the biggest obstacle I have usually is me. And when I learn to get out of my way, I can make it happen. Yep.
Thank you so much for coming to talk today. Who have you looked up as mentors, or who do you currently look up to for where some of these ideas in terms of talk about conflict?
Yeah, I'm a big reader, no surprise, right? So I like to read books. I think, it depends on the topic, right? So, but if it's leadership, I think Ram Charan has done some really phenomenal work on leadership. So if you're a big leadership guru, he's got a book called The Leadership Pipeline that I think is one of the best books ever written about what it means to progress in leadership. Kevin Cashman just wrote his book about Inside Outside. That I think is phenomenal. So I think those are two people. I would tell you I don't have one person because I don't think anyone's smart enough to know everything. So I like to try to have a diverse group of people. When I was in college, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I had the major, but I thought, well, I'm going to go figure it out. So I went to what they call the Gold Book in the Twin Cities, where you had all the people that were in sales and marketing jobs. And I found people that had cool titles, and I called them up, and I said, I'm a college student, and I'm in the city doing an internship. Can I come see you? Everyone said yes. And so I think the more diversity you can have, the broader your net of feedback, the more comfortable you'll be that you have the right perspective. I'm the kind of person I never want you to put me in a box because I don't fit, right? I don't like to do gray boxes short of stuff. So I like to have a real diverse network of feedback. I also think you need gender and you need cultural differences as well. To be able to make it happen. So I read a lot, I do blogs, I listen to that, I do a bit of podcasting, try to get out into the meetings to listen to other speakers, and then just try to meet with people. So I'm a huge networker, got a list of people and make sure that I'm visiting with them frequently and be curious about what's happening, but that's what I would do.
One more quick question.
One more. Yes?
How would you define your elevator speech for success, and what is success, and is it tied with results at all?
That's a big question. What is my elevator speech for success? Mine would follow, my personal mission statement is to bring relevance and high performance to a future goal. So mine is about impact. When I leave us working together, if you can say, I'm better because she came. It was success.
Thank you.
Nancy, you touched on a lot of things, and I could comment a lot, but one thing I would like to share is the challenges aspect. My oldest son is 30, so I think I can share the story because statute of limitations run out. During the, I kind of jokingly say that he dropped out of 2 high schools, one being Edina High School, then went to one of the alternative schools. But then he got caught smoking at the Mall of America, so he was kicked out. And then, with gumption, he got GED, went to Normandale, and dropped out of Normandale. Then joined the Navy. Fast forward, he's been successful in the Navy, and he made chief last year, chief's mess. And he manages 15 people at a large international pharmaceutical company. So I 100% agree that the challenges do make us. It gives us the weakness that we need to struggle with, but also the strength that we can live with. So I would like to say the following, and thanks for your talk today. Rotary is 1.2 million neighbors, community leaders, and global citizens, united for common good, saving and bettering lives. At its core, Rotary is about, as Pastor Rauner put it, love and peace, it really is. And also, as John Credell mentioned, Rotary has 6 avenues of service. 3 of them are actually represented here today. One's vocation, second is education, and third is youth services. So in appreciation of your presentation today, we'll make a donation to Edina Public Schools Kids Program. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks.